Hey, what's up, folks? Welcome back to On Texas Football and welcome back to Football Theory. I'm lifetime Longhorn Rod Babers. Pleased to be joined by the newest member of the On Texas Football family, my good friend and now esteemed co-worker and colleague. It's my man Jeff Howe joining me for Football Theory. Football Theory, of course, brought to you by accomplished Austin realtor Laura Baker. We got to thank her before we move on because Football Theory wouldn't be possible without Laura Baker and her team. Football Theory brought to you by Laura Baker and her team. Laura and the Andy Allen team at Keller Williams can handle all of your real estate needs in the Austin area. Laura is not only a diehard Longhorn fan, but a longtime Austin real estate expert. So if you have any concerns or questions regarding real estate in the Austin area, please don't hesitate to give her a shout today. 512-784-0505. That's 512-784-0505. Thank you very much to Laura Baker and her team for being a part of our team here at On Texas Football and sponsoring Football Theory. All right, Jeff, first time I think ever in the history of Football Theory, very short history. We're just going to do just kind of a player-focused Football Theory, and then kind of do a profile on one specific player. Who knows? This thing might catch on. We might start doing this a lot, actually, because I kind of like the thought of it, and you're the one who came up with it. And the player who inspired you for this new type of Football Theory was what player?
Anthony Hill, because I don't know, just we've had, recent stuff with the draft, and I'm working on an article right now. I've been working on it for a couple of days to publish it on ontexasfootball.com. Looking back at some recruiters, mainly looking at the 2021 recruiting class, but I had to go kind of in the Wayback Machine and stumbled upon the 2001 class and thought about Derek Johnson. And, I started thinking like you get one of these guys ever so often, thought this about Derek Johnson. Joseph Osai was kind of like this. Sergio Kendall fell into this role of this guy is so special and has such a unique skill set. How do you maximize that? Like, what can you do to get the absolute most out of him where you don't want any meat to be left on the bone with Anthony Hill? Now, the Pete Witkowski, Johnny Nansen, they don't want to get to whenever the season ends, hopefully after Texas wins the national championship. At that point, it doesn't matter, but they don't want to say, I wish I would have done this with Anthony Hill. I wish we could have done that. Just do whatever you want to do what you need to do to get the most out of him. And kind of wanted to look at it because, you look at some of the linebackers Texas had recently. Like I thought about DeMarvion Overshown too. Now, DeMarvion Overshown was a really good blitzer, right? We saw the double A gap blitz a lot with him and Jalen Ford, but DeMarvion Overshown wasn't the pass rusher, the natural pass rusher that Anthony Hill is. So I think just doing something as simple as, we'll give him more double A gap blitzes. That would be doing him and your defense a disservice. So all these thoughts are going on in my head, Rod. And I was like, why don't we just take Football Theory this week and let's just talk it out, how Texas gets the most out of Anthony Hill. And let's face it, probably what's going to be his last season.
No, I love it, Jeff, because I've been on the record and I've said it, and I feel bad about saying it because he's literally considered. Pro Football Focus had him as the best returning linebacker in the country. So to say this, to me, it seems like I'm just kind of complaining. What did Sark say? Laugh, crying from a yacht. That's what I feel like. But I feel like he's been underutilized. That's crazy to say that because, and here's the reason why. Because you talked about him as a natural pass rusher. Guys, go look at his pressure rate. It is the freakiest thing. Because he's only got this past season, based on Pro Football Focus numbers, 75 pass rush snaps, all right, as a pass rusher. But they got him with 23 pressures, which means his pressure rate is hovering above 30%.
Yeah.
And to show you how crazy it is, Colin Simmons' pressure rate is 19%, and we consider him elite as a pass rusher. By the way, Colin Simmons, you can look at his true drop back pass rush rate, like I'm saying pressure rate, without play action, without the screen passes, all of that taken out of the equation. He's up to like 23% pressure rate, which is still, trust me, that's around elite. Abdul Carter was right below 19%. If you're looking at guys like Princely, Umanmi Yellen, I think he had a really high pressure rate. He probably was around 23%. Pierce was probably somewhere around there as well, 20%. This dude was at 30%. Now you may say that's freakish. He had 99 pass rush snaps in 2023 and had a 19% pressure rate. He has a 24% pressure rate in his career. So I don't care how you're doing it, Jeff. I don't think you put him on the edge like you did sometimes in 23. I love your idea about, hey, sometimes, you know what? We just going to blitz him in the A gaps. By the way, Texas box blitz rate, which is kind of that just a second level blitz from the linebacker position by the ball, about 19% of their blitzes. They don't blitz a lot. They're 118th in blitz rate nationally. So they don't really blitz a lot. But how about simulated pressures? How about sim pressures? That's, for those who don't know, a sim pressure looks like a blitz, smells like a blitz, feels like a blitz, but it ain't a blitz. A blitz is when you send 5 or more guys. Simulated pressure is when you send 4 or fewer guys. And you can send 4, drop back, and maybe that's why they're cross-training a lot of guys. Like Trey Moore is cross-training. Brad Spence is cross-training on the edge and that linebacker, just like Trey Moore. We know that Anthony Hill can play on the edge. So maybe the cross-training is maybe for some sim pressure looks, run some twists and stunts. Your idea, by the way, Jeff, you've been talking about that all offseason. Some games up front with Anthony Hill as one of your primary pass rushers. If he doesn't get 100 pass rush snaps this season, I'm going to say that I'm disappointed. I'm not going to say this because he's still probably going to be a first-round pick. I'm going to say I'll be disappointed because the guy got 8 sacks with 75 pass rush snaps. You give him about 25 more pass rush snaps, I think he'll get to 10 sacks. I think, and if you can weaponize him in the ways you're talking about, I think you could get to double-digit sacks. You get him to double-digit sacks, it makes him not only the best linebacker in the country, but the best pass-rushing linebacker in the country. That gets you in the top 20.
Think about how Georgia used Jalen Walker this last year. And when he was out, because there were times where, it seemed like that whole Georgia defense at one point in time, everybody was beat up a little bit. But, when Jalen Walker was healthy, which it turns out he was healthy and ready to go for the 2 times Georgia played Texas, and he was arguably the biggest difference in both games. But when we talk about pressure rates, Rod, this kind of puts it in perspective. You think about and Georgia, Kirby Smart, Will Muschamp, Glenn Schumann, they're fantastic at simulated pressure. Because they've got a guy like Jalen Walker who can win one-on-one. Michael Williams could win one-on-one. They've got a group of interior defensive linemen who could win one-on-one. Jalen Walker's pressure rate, now granted, Anthony Hill had about 75 pass rush snaps last year. There's 195 for Jalen Walker. His pressure rate was 17%. A little over 17%. So we're talking about Anthony Hill's in the 30s. And this is not like you just laid out. Last year was an anomaly. So I can't think, right? Sergio Kendall was a different kind of guy. Joseph Osai was a different kind of guy. Those guys were more so edge defenders who could drop in coverage. I cannot honestly think of a linebacker Texas has had that was an elite second level player as an off-ball linebacker who was also arguably your best pass rusher and on the defense with Colin Simmons. At the very worst, he's your second best pass rusher. I can't think of a linebacker as good as Derek Johnson was, as good as Jordan Hicks was, as good as some of the linebackers we've seen. I can't think right of a guy Texas has had like Anthony Hill.
I'm with you. Definitely not in my lifetime since I've been covering and went to Texas. And honestly, there's no way you can go back pre-modern era and find a freak like that. And nothing against, Tommy Nobis, baby. maybe it was Tommy. I didn't watch Tommy, so maybe it's Tommy Nobis. But that's what kind of guy we're talking about of that ilk. Because I agree with you. I think the fact that he's such an elite pass. And to your point about, I'll give you a couple of stats to show you that what Jeff is talking about is just mind blowing, right? How good this guy is at every level. So since 2023, his 13 sacks and 5 forced fumbles are tied for the most for any Power 4 linebacker. It's coming back. That's returning. His 32 coverage stops are tied for the most by an FBS linebacker since 2023. He has 127 plays where he was the defender to make first contact with the ball carrier since 2023. That is the most by a Power 4 linebacker. It don't matter what you ask him to do.
Yeah,
you can ask him to get in there and just be a kind of a B gap to B gap linebacker. He can do that. You can ask him to drop back and be a spread baby in coverage. He can do that really well. You can ask him, just say, man, I need you to go blitz or I need you to go rush the passer. And he does that. All things he's doing actually now at an elite level. And I think he's poised to have a breakout year. that's why I think it's important that the linebacker position right now, we talk about it as a strength, not just because of Anthony Hill, but because of the depth they're returning, right? You got Leon LaFau, you got a young Ty Anthony Smith in there as well. Now you're bringing in Brad Spence, you're cross-training Trey Moore there as well. Other linebackers that can stabilize the position for you while you move that freaky chess piece around and do things with them, or, change up your looks to be something that makes it tougher for the offense to identify who's playing what. Oh man, did you move him around the edge, or where'd you put Trey Moore? I think all of that will free him up to do more. And I think they should. I think they should move him around a little bit more this season, just because you got linebackers that can stabilize the off-ball linebacker position. You can do some things with him that are a little bit more innovative and creative.
Yeah, I think, Texas is going to play more mobile quarterbacks this year. Like we realize, even some of the guys they faced last year, like a Marcel Reed at Texas A&M, they didn't face DJ Lagway last year. It'll be a different time facing Gunnar Stockton than when they saw Gunnar Stockton in the SEC championship game. They'll actually be able to prepare for it. I think at least from the outside looking in, the fans' perspective and our perspective watching the game, I think the easy thing is we'll just use Anthony Hill as a spy. Again, I don't want him just doing one thing.
Agreed.
That's like having a Ferrari and I'm going to drive it at 50 miles an hour. I mean, it'll look cool, but I ain't getting the most out of it. I want to mash the gas on this thing, right? Yeah. So, like you said, Rod, you've got enough pieces now for your off-ball linebackers. Leonga LaFau is going to be big in this, but you think about the athleticism you've got now with Trey Moore, with Brad Spence. I'll even throw Jelani McDonald in there because of the nickel role he can play. You've got enough guys that you can have multiple guys. And PK has been good about this. Yes. You can have multiple guys serve as a spy to where you're almost making yourself easier to game plan against. If an offensive coordinator goes, well, they're using Anthony Hill as a spy every play, we can there's a counter punch to everybody's punch. So I don't want the defense. If I'm PK, I don't want the opposing offense to know where he's lining up. In other words, I want that quarterback to look around with panic in his eyes, knowing where's zero? Where's zero? I got to find zero. And at the same time, you're going to have to worry about Colin Simmons. Mm-hmm. You're going to have to worry about Trey Moore. And you might have to worry about Murad Watson on the interior. And maybe I like Ethan Burke having a big year. I don't know if that's going to translate too statistically, but I think we can maybe see the best of Ethan Burke this year. Yeah, it's going to free up everybody else to make plays. That's what having a high impact guy like Anthony Hill can do for you. So yeah, you can use him as a spy, but then you can put him on the edge. You can have him pressure from the second level. You can walk him up late. You can drop him into coverage. You don't want him doing one thing a large percent of the time. And the thing, Rod, that I like the most about Anthony Hill, he was so quick to get it as a freshman. And we saw the evolution of his feel for the defense, his football IQ continued to grow throughout his sophomore year. He can handle doing all these things. That's why, to me, he reminds me of kind of some of those linebackers Nick Saban has had. And like we saw with Jalen Walker at Georgia last year, some of those linebackers Kirby Smart has had. Anthony Hill is one of those guys where you can put a lot on his plate and he can digest it all because he's got the physical skills to do it. He's got the mind to do it for the game. And you put that together in a package, like I said, as good as, a Sergio Kindle was and some of these other guys we've seen come through Texas, they've never had a guy like this who you can look at an off-ball linebacker and legitimately say he's such a good pass rusher. He could be a top 5 to 10 pick in the draft.
Oh yeah, he gets some. Yeah. If he gets some crazy number of sacks, like he gets like 12 sacks or something like that, yeah, I still think he can get double-digit sacks next year. So I'm with you. I think that's a possibility because of the added value you get with him. He's not just a linebacker, as we just talked about. But you're right. I mean, there's no question. I went and looked at just a couple more stats. I know we're getting close to the end of things here. We were talking about simulated pressures that you could use. Texas last year, 21% sim pressure rate. In terms of the amount of times they run simulated pressures. So I would expect that to increase. As I pointed out, their off-ball box blitz rate is around 19%. I think that should increase. I do think Anthony Hill's good enough where you can justify, getting out a little outside of your comfort zone to try to weaponize him in those types of ways. Also, here's a cool stat. out of all the defenders returning in college football, they had at least 8 sacks last season and a 15% pressure rate. He has the highest that I could find. Because who the hell don't have a 30% pressure rate? That's insane. From the previous season I'm talking about. So that's crazy too. So which way you're looking at it, and I do think they are looking at ways to make him more of he's already an impact player. He led you in havoc plays last year. For those who don't know what havoc plays are, it's a splash play by the defense. So we're talking about a forced fumble, a fumble recovery, an interception, pass deflection, PBU, a tackle for loss, or a sack. Those are splash plays. He led the team in splash plays. He actually had more than Jahdae Barron. I counted him with 23 and a half havoc plays last year. So, I mean, you can make the argument he's your best and most important defensive player, period. Mm-hmm. Even I know Colin Simmons is really good. Michael Taft is really good. I mean, he got some really good players. But like I said, the argument can be made. I think we just did that. He doesn't really have a weakness at linebacker, and that's rare. That's rare.
The only thing you could nitpick on, and I've talked about this, is when he does drop, finishing more plays when he's got an opportunity to get his hands on the ball. Because you look back last year, as good as he was, he probably left, 3 interceptions, 4 interceptions on the field, somewhere around there, 3 to 5, give or take.
I remember a couple.
Yeah. So, but again, you're nitpicking a skill set. You're nitpicking a performance. It was an All-American performance, and it's like, okay, maybe instead of being a second-team All-American, maybe he could have been a first-team All-American if he would have gotten a couple more of those interceptions. But again, we're talking about a guy that does so much for your defense, and I like all the changes, cross-training Trey Moore and bringing in Brad Spence, doing the things that PK and this defensive staff have done. I think it's all, hey, how can we get the most out of Anthony Hill? Have everybody else able to do some of the things. In other words, if he's dropping into coverage, we've got guys from the second level that can rush the passer. If he's rushing the passer, we've got guys that can hang in coverage. If he's blitzing, we've got guys in the second and third levels that can fill the gaps. So the Pro Football Focus, if you look at Anthony Hill's grades, and I'm glad they mentioned that he's the number 1 returning linebacker in the country, because PFF didn't like Anthony Hill last year. Why? He had 18 missed tackles, right? And when you're around the ball as much as he is, missed tackles are one of those things that are going to happen. But if you can get there and disrupt it, and you rally to the football as well as Texas has, it didn't feel like he had 18 missed tackles, Rod, because the defense did a really good job of coming up behind him to clean it up.
Yeah.
So even the stuff where he's deficient, it really kind of washes out in the end.
Yeah, that's a good point.
Everything else he brings to the table.
That's a great point. Man, I remember a couple of years ago, I started counting, not just missed tackles, but yards as a result of missed tackles, because you can miss a lot of tackles. But like you said, it didn't matter last year because you had so much great pursuit to the football, good angles to the football. So guys were cleaning up really well. So honestly, you should pursue with reckless abandon because my guys are coming. I just got to make sure I disrupt the play. I got to make sure that I make him run the bubble because I got reinforcements. And so that's really the key. You can miss tackles. But as long as you make sure that you're, as a team, you guys pursue well to the football, take good angles to the football, and you don't allow yards after that first contact, which they did really well last year. No, good point there. Yeah, so maybe that's something he's got to work on. Maybe the missed tackles, maybe making more plays in space. But there's no doubt about it. Anthony Hill poised for a big year. All right, let's thank our sponsor.
I'll say this as we get out of here, Rod. Just you're looking at the draft history. The last off-ball linebacker drafted close to the top 10. Now, I don't count Will Anderson. Will Anderson, you'll see him.
Edge. Yeah.
Go back to 2021. The Cowboys traded back to 12 in that draft and still ended up with Micah Parsons. Did we see the kind of impact he's had? I'm not being hyperbolic when I say Anthony Hill could be that same type of player, have that same type of impact. I think he's that special.
Now they got Michael's on the edge, mostly exclusively now. But he was that kind of freak athlete is kind of what you're talking about too. All right. Good stuff there, Jeff, as always. Thank you to our fantastic sponsor, Laura Baker. Football Theory brought to you by accomplished Austin realtor Laura Baker. Laura and the Andy Allen team at Keller Williams can handle all of your real estate needs in the Austin area. Laura is not only a diehard Longhorn fan, but a longtime Austin real estate expert. So if you have any questions about real estate in the Austin area, please give her a shout today. Don't hesitate. 512-784-0000. 0505. That's 512-784-0505. Thank you, Jeff, for the expertise and knowledge, brother. Always a great discussion. And thank all you guys out there for joining us. Thank you to Matthew behind the scenes. He's the real MVP. And for Jeff and for Matthew and accomplished Austin Real to Laura Baker. Until next time, I'm Lifetime Longhorn Rod Babers. Hook 'em horns.